Kunyu Wanguo Quantu, printed in China at the request of the Wanli Emperor during 1602 by the Italian Catholic missionary Matteo Ricci and Chinese collaborators, Mandarin Zhong Wentao, and the technical translator, Zhizao, is the earliest known Chinese world map with the style of European maps. It has been referred to as the impossible black tulip of cartography, because of its rarity, importance and exoticism. The map was crucial in expanding Chinese knowledge of the world. It was later exported to Japan and was influential there as well. Description: the 1602 Ricci map is a very large, 5 feet high and 12 feet wide, woodcut using a pseudo-cylindrical map projection showing China at the center of the known world. The 1906 Exoticism map resembles the display of this Chinese map. It is the first map in Chinese to show the Americas. The map's mirror image originally was carved on 6 large blocks of wood and then printed in brownish ink on 6 mulberry paper panels, similar to the making of a folding screen. It portrays both North and South America and the Pacific Ocean with reasonable accuracy. China appropriately is linked to Asia, India, and the Middle East. Europe, the Mediterranean, and Africa also are well delineated. Diane Neiman, a trustee of the James Ford Bell Trust, notes that there is some distortion, but what's on the map is the result of commerce, trade and exploration, so one has a good sense of what was known then. Bin Zhang, first Secretary for Cultural Affairs at the Chinese Embassy in Washington, D.C., said in 2009, the map represents the momentous first meeting of East and West and was the catalyst for commerce. Details: the map includes images and annotations describing different regions of the world. Africa is noted to have the world's highest mountain and longest river. The brief description of North America mentions humped oxen or bison, feral horses, and names Canada. The map identifies Florida as Wadi, the land of flowers. Several Central and South American places are named, including Guatemala, Yucatan, and Chile. The map's cartographer, Matteo Ricci, gave a brief description of the discovery of the Americas. In olden days, nobody had even known that there were such places as North and South America and Magellanica, but 100 years ago, Europeans came sailing in the ships to parts of the sea coast, and so discovered them. The Museo della Spagula Bologna has in its collection, displayed on the wall of the Globe Room, original copies of panels 1 and 6 of the 6 panels comprising the 1602 Ricci map. During restoration and mounting, a central panel, a part of the Doppio Emisfero del Stelle by the German mathematician and astronomer Johann Adam Schall von Bell, was inserted between the 2 sections by mistake. In 1958, Pasquale Delia, sinologist at the University of Rome, certified the authenticity of the Chinese maps in this museum's possession, stating that it is the 3rd edition of a geographical and cartographical work that made Ricci famous throughout China. He had already made a first edition in 1584 at Shouring, followed by a second in 1600 at Nanking, and 2 years later a third in Peking. In 1938, an exhaustive work by Pasquale Delia, edited by the Biblioteca Apostolica Vaticana, was published with comments, notes, and translation of the whole map. The maps carry plentiful instructions for use and detailed illustrations of the instruments that went into the production, as well as explanations regarding conceptions of systems of the terrestrial and celestial world. There is a long preface by Matteo Ricci in the middle of the map, where it depicts the Pacific Ocean. Delia's translation reads, "Once I thought learning was a multifold experience and I would not refuse to travel 10,000 li to be able to question wise men and visit celebrated countries. But how long is a man's life? It is certain that many years are needed to acquire a complete science, based on a vast number of observations, and that's where one becomes old without the time to make use of this science. Is this not a painful thing? And this is why I put great store by maps and history. History for fixing, and maps for handing them on. Respectfully written by the European Matteo Ricci on the 17th of August 1602. The figure of the novecile is printed to the left of the title, illustrated as per 16th century conceptions. The accompanying inscription explains the movement of the planets. The right-hand section has other inscriptions giving general ideas on geography and oceanography. Another inscription records an extract of the Storia dei Mongoli regarding the motions of the sun. In the top of the left-hand section, there is an explanation of eclipses and the method for measuring the Earth and the Moon. Both sections carried the characteristic Jesuit seal, the IHS of the Society of Jesus. At the bottom left, in the southern hemisphere, is the name of the Chinese publisher of the map and the date. One day of the first month of autumn in the year 1602. The map also incorporates an explanation of parallels and meridians, a proof that the sun is larger than the moon, a table showing the distances of planets from the Earth, an explanation of the varying lengths of days and nights, and polar projections of the Earth that are unusually consistent with its main map. History. Matteo Ricci was a Jesuit priest. Ricci was one of the first Western scholars to live in China, and he became a master of Chinese script and the classical Chinese language. In 1583, Ricci was among the first Jesuits to enter China from Macau. The first Chinese world map was named Yudi Shanhai Quantu and made in Shaoqing in 1584 by Matteo Ricci with Chinese collaborators. Ricci had a small Italian wall map in his possession and created Chinese versions of it at the request of the governor of Shaoqing at the time, Wang Pan, who wanted the document to serve as a resource for explorers and scholars. On January 24, 1601, Ricci was the first Jesuit, and one of the first Westerners, to enter the Ming capital Beijing, bringing atlases of Europe and the West that were unknown to his hosts. The Chinese had maps of the East that were equally unfamiliar to Western scholars. In 1602, at the request of the Wanli Emperor, Ricci collaborated with Mandarin Zhong Wentao, a technical translator, Zhizao, and other Chinese scholars in Beijing to create what was his third and largest world map, the Kunyu Wanguo Quantu. In this map, European geographic knowledge, new to the Chinese, was combined with Chinese information unknown to Europeans to create the first map known to combine Chinese and European cartography. Among other things, this map revealed the existence of America to the Chinese. Ford W. Bell said, "This was a great collaboration between East and West. It really is a very clear example of how trade was a driving force behind the spread of civilization." According to John D. Day, Matteo Ricci prepared 4 editions of Chinese world maps during his mission in China before 1603, a 1584 early woodblock print made in Shaoqing, called Yudi Shanhai Quantu, a 1596 map carved on a stele, called Shanhai Yudi II, a 1600 revised version of the 1596, usually named Shanhai Yudi Quantu, engraved by Wu Zhongming, a 1602 larger and much refined edition of the 1584 map, in 6 panels, printed in Beijing, called Kunyu Wanguo Quantu. Several prints of the Kunyu Wanguo Quantu were made in 1602. Most of the original maps now are lost. Only 6 original copies of the map are known to exist, and only 2 are in good condition. Known copies are in the Vatican Apostolic Library collection and at the James Ford Bell Library at the University of Minnesota. The Vatican's 1602 copy was reproduced by Pasquale Delia in the beautifully arranged book Il Mappamondo Cines del P. Matteo Ricci S.I. in 1938. This modern work also contains Italian translations of the colophons on the map, a catalogue of all toponyms, plus detailed notes regarding their identification. Other copies of the 1602 map are located at Japan, Kyoto University Collection of Japan Miyagi Prefecture Library, collection of the Library of the Japanese Cabinet, and a private collection in Paris, France. No original examples of the map are known to exist in China, where Ricci was revered and buried. The maps received widespread attention and circulation. The Governor-General of Guizhou reproduced a copy of the map in a book about Guizhou published in Guiyang in 1604. Ricci estimated that more than 1,000 copies of the 1602 edition were reprinted. Various versions of the map were exported to Japan, and later Korea. An unattributed and very detailed 2-page colored edition of the map, known in Japanese as Kunyu Wanguo Quantu, was made in Japan circa 1604. Within this Japanese export copy, Japanese katakana is utilized for foreign location names throughout the Western world. The Gonyoman Gakjundo is a Korean hand-copied reproduction print by painter Kim Jin-yo in 1708, the 34th year of King Sukjong's rule of Joseon. It shows Kunyu Wanguo Quantu measuring 533 × 170 centimeters on mulberry paper. This map, representing the world in an ellipse, was brought to Korea in the 36th year of King Seonjo's rule by Li Guanzheng and Guan Hui, 2 envoys of Joseon to China. It is owned and displayed at Seoul National University Museum, San 56-1, Sillim-dong, Gwanak-gu, Seoul, Korea, and was designated National Treasure No. 849 on August 9, 1985. The map shows 5 world continents and over 850 toponyms. It contains descriptions of ethnic groups and main products associated with each region. In the margins outside the ellipse, there are images of the northern and southern hemispheres, the Aristotelian geocentric world system, and the orbits of the Sun and Moon. It has an introduction by Cho Seok Jeng providing information on the constitution of the map and its production process. This reproduction map provides a clear testimony to the national interest in Western maps in 17th-century Korea. It is a highly aesthetic piece of work, and one of the most beautiful maps produced during the Joseon period. Bell Library copy. The James Ford Bell Trust announced in December 2009 that it had acquired one of 2 good copies of the 1602 Ricci map from the firm of Bernard J. Shapiro, a noted dealer of rare books and maps in London, for $1 million, the second most expensive map purchase in history. This copy had been held for years by a private collector in Japan. Ford W. Bell, president of the American Association of Museums and a trustee of the James Ford Bell Trust started by his grandfather James Ford Bell, the founder of General Mills, said in an interview with a reporter from Minnesota Public Radio's All Things Considered. These opportunities don't present themselves very often. This map was the only one on the market, and the only one likely to be on the market, so we had to take advantage of that opportunity. The map was displayed for the first time in North America at the Library of Congress from January through April 2010. It was scanned by the Library of Congress Geography and Map Division to create a permanent digital image that will be posted on the Internet. Later in 2010 in the World Digital Library for scholars and students to study. The map was then exhibited briefly at the Minneapolis Institute of Arts, before moving to its permanent home at the James Ford Bell Library at the University of Minnesota, where it will be on display beginning September 15, 2010. Chinese maps published after 1602. Before his death at Peking in 1610, Matteo Ricci prepared 4 more world maps after the 1602 one. 5. A 1603 8-panel version of the 1602 map, usually named Liang Yi Shandan 2. The 1603 edition is larger than the 1602, but is less well known because of the fewer extant copies and versions based on it. 6. A 1604 booklet based on the map of 1600, also named Shanhai Yudi Quantu, engraved by Guo Zhizao. 7. A new 1608 version, 12 copies presented to the Emperor. 8. And a 1609 map in 2 hemispheres. Most of these maps now are lost. Later copies of the 1602 edition of the Kunyu Wanguo Quantu may be found in China, Korea, London, and Vienna. One copy of the map recently was discovered in the storerooms of the Shenyang Museum in China. A world search is currently in progress by Kendall Whaling Museum of Massachusetts. Hong Weilian earlier established a list of 12 total Ricci maps, which differs considerably from Day's findings. In 1607 or 1609 the Shanhai Yudi Quantu is a Chinese map which was published in the geographical treatise Sangkai Tu Hui. The Shanhai Yudi Quantu was influenced highly by the work of Matteo Ricci. Matteo Ricci had several of his own maps entitled Shanhai Yudi Quantu. The locations in the map have been identified and translated by Roderick Ptak in his work, The Sino-European Map, in the Encyclopedia Sangkai Tu Hui. About 1620 Giulio Aleni made the world map Wanguo Quantu, putting China at the center of the world map, following Ricci's format and contents, but in a much smaller size. This map was included in some editions of Aleni's geographical work, Zhifang Wei Ji. His 1623 preface states that another Jesuit, Diego de Pantoja, on the command of the emperor, had translated a different European map, also following Ricci's model, but there is no other knowledge of that work. In 1633, the Jesuit Francesco Sambiase composed and annotated another world map entitled Kunyu Quantu in Nanjing. In 1674, Ferdinand Verbius developed the Kunyu Quantu, a similar map, but with various improvements. It consists of 8 panels, each 179 centimeters by 54 centimeters, together displaying 2 hemispheres in Mercator projection. The 2 outer scrolls individually depict cartouches that contain several kinds of information on geography and meteorology. The making of Verbius' Kunyu Quantu was intended to meet the interest of the Kangxi Emperor, as Verbius' introductory dedication implies. There currently are at least 14 or 15 copies and editions of this map known in Europe, Japan, Taiwan, America, and Australia. Religious significance. Chen Hui Hung discussed the religious meaning of the world maps that were produced by Jesuit missionaries in China from the late 16th to the 17th centuries. These world maps serve as a visual proof to emphasize the greatness of the world and the minuscule nature of humans. Through these maps people can see the truth of God because of the visual ability granted via God's omnipotence. Jesuit cartography was not only a visual image of geographical configuration, it paved the way for the comprehension of what they expressed is the Creator's significance. It was an embodiment of the Renaissance tradition tradition of cartography as the graphical representation of the universe. This includes the idea of understanding nature through mathematical science as well as understanding heaven by visualization and sensibility. In this Renaissance tradition, geography was associated with cosmology that was based upon Christian theology. These maps expressed Aristotle's sensibility toward comprehension of the universe, which formed the core of Catholic epistemology and natural philosophy. The religious implications of Jesuit cartography in China are part of how the Jesuits used the cartographic superiority strategically in their evangelization. Ricci was a Jesuit priest whose mission was to convert the Chinese to Roman Catholicism. He thought that might be helped by demonstrating the superior understanding of the world that he believed grew out of Christian faith. The map's text shows it as part of a diplomatic attempt by Ricci to affirm the greatness of his own religion and culture. Ricci declares that it offers testimony to the supreme goodness, greatness and unity of Him who controls heaven and earth. Gallery.